Have you ever heard of a war that was over before you could finish your coffee? Not years, not months, not even a full day. Today, we're diving into the absolutely wild but completely true story of the Anglo-Zanzibar War, the shortest war in all of recorded history.
Yep, you heard that right. 38 minutes. From the first shot fired to the final surrender, the entire conflict lasted less time than an episode of your favorite sitcom. It's a number that sounds made up, doesn't it? But trust me, it was very, very real. So, the big question is, how? How on earth does a war start and end in just over half an hour? To really get our heads around this, we need to travel back in time to 1896, to a small but incredibly important island off the coast of East Africa.
Okay, so let's set the scene. This is Zanzibar in the late 19th century. Now, this place wasn't just some sleepy island paradise. It was a massive hub for the trade of spices and, much more darkly, for the slave trade. It was a huge strategic prize in what was called the scramble for Africa, this mad dash where European powers were just carving up the continent for themselves.
By this point, Zanzibar had become a British protectorate. Now, that word, protectorate, sounds kind of nice and safe, right? But what it really meant was that Britain called the shots. And the most important part of this deal was a treaty from 1890 that gave Britain one crucial power. They could veto any new sultan they didn't like. Remember that detail? It's the key to this whole story.
And look, this whole situation didn't just pop up overnight. Tensions had been building for decades. The British had been pressuring Zanzibar to end the slave trade, which you can imagine really angered the local elite who were making a fortune from it. All these events were just piling on top of each other, creating this pressure cooker situation.
And then, on August 25, 1896, the pressure cooker explodes. The Sultan, who was very friendly with the British, suddenly drops dead, and the rumors started immediately. Was he poisoned? And the main suspect was his own nephew, who really wanted that throne for himself.
So right away, we have a major showdown. In one corner, you've got Khalid bin Bargash. He's ambitious, he's not a fan of the British, and he decides he's just going to ignore that little treaty we talked about. And in the other corner is Hamud bin Mohammed, the guy the British actually wanted in power, someone who, would do what they said.
Khalid doesn't mess around. He moves straight into the Sultan's palace, barricades himself inside, and rallies his supporters. He gets about 2,800 men together, palace guards, civilians, whoever he can find, and points the palace cannons out towards the harbor. He was basically daring the British Empire to do something about it.
And how did the British Empire react? Well, they didn't send a strongly worded letter. They sent warships. Very quickly, the harbor facing the palace was just bristling with the massive cannons of the Royal Navy. The standoff was on.
Now, let's be totally clear here. This was not a fair fight, not even close. Sure, Khalid had more men on the land, but that didn't matter. What mattered was what was floating in the harbor. The British had 5 modern, powerful warships. The Zanzibari Navy? They had one single royal yacht, which was, funnily enough, a gift from Queen Victoria. This wasn't a standoff. It was a ticking time bomb.
So, the British deliver their final offer. And it was brutally simple. No negotiations, no discussions. The demand was absolute. Take down your flag and get out of the palace by 9 a.m. tomorrow, or else.
And this right here is the fatal miscalculation. Khalid's response was basically, nah, you're bluffing. You wouldn't dare. He completely underestimated just how serious the British were. He called their bluff, not realizing they weren't holding cards. They were holding cannons.
So the morning of August 27th arrives. The deadline of 9 a.m. ticks by. Khalid sends one last message trying to talk, but it's way too late. Aboard the British flagship, the admiral gives the order. And at 2 minutes past 9, the Royal Navy unleashes hell.
The result was just instant, unbelievable destruction. The palace, which was mostly made of wood, was just torn to shreds by high explosive shells. That little royal yacht, the Glasgow, bravely fired back and was at the bottom of the harbor minutes later. The whole palace complex was on fire. Then at 9:40 a.m., the Sultan's flag was shot right off the flagpole, and just like that, it was all over.
In 38 minutes, the future of Zanzibar had been decided with brutal finality. As the smoke cleared, it revealed a scene of total devastation and an absolute, unquestionable British victory.
And if you really want to understand just how lopsided this war was, all you have to do is look at the casualties. About 500 of Khalid's men were killed or wounded,
And on the British side, one sailor. One single sailor was slightly injured. This wasn't a war. It was a demolition. So, what happened to everyone? Well, Khalid managed to escape and was eventually smuggled out of the country. The British immediately put their preferred guy, Hamoud, on the throne as a puppet ruler, effectively ending any real independence for Zanzibar. And then, for the final, humiliating insult, the British forced Khalid's supporters to pay them back for the cost of the shells used to destroy their palace. You can't make this stuff up.
So, what do we make of all this? Is it just a weird, kind of funny historical footnote? The story of the 38-minute war? It's easy to see it that way. But it's also a pretty stark and brutal lesson in the cold, hard reality of colonial power. It shows what happens when one man's gamble goes wrong and he comes face to face with the overwhelming firepower of an empire that does not bluff, all decided in less time than it takes to make and eat breakfast.